Quick and easy. In the short clips you just saw, you saw all three different base types of CC. Hard CC, stagger, and knockups, or knockdowns, or knockbacks, whatever you want to call it. While even auto attacks, at least to some extent, can actually stagger your target, most attacks cannot knock down your opponent, and most attacks can definitely not hard CC your opponent. There are different forms of hard CC as well. First being faint, petrification, freezing, fear, earthquake, pest, sleep, and incarceration. All of these hard CCs have one thing in common, that you cannot control your character. There are a couple of other additional effects. One, for example, is the freeze. Freeze's additional effect is that your character is not actually moving while CC'd. So even if you want to move the enemy character while you froze him, you can't. So that goes for aerial combos, and that goes for normal stagger combos as well. So the character is immovable in that sense. There's also something to be said about knockdowns. Knockdowns can be used while the enemy is mid-air. They can be used while the enemy is on the ground, and can be used when the enemy is just standing still. The only occasion where it doesn't actually work is when they're frozen, as mentioned before. There are almost no exceptions to this, besides your opponent being CC'd for too long so he becomes CC immune, or your opponent using a dash, an ultimate, or a very exceptional ability that makes him immune to CC. Okay, let's quickly show you what CC protection would look like in-game and how you can identify said immunities and protections. Let's start off with a stagger immunity. So this ability, as you can see right here in the second yellow text in the description, it says stagger immunity right below attack type from the back. Now this is important because staggers happen all the time, so abilities that do not have stagger immunity will be, well, very, very easily interrupted. But there's one more caveat to this. As you can see on the top right of the skill, this also says PvE. If you press Alt on your keyboard, it swaps to PvP, and this ability all of a sudden does not have stagger immunity anymore. So if you pick your abilities for PvP, make sure that you check them with your Alt key, because it can in some cases completely ruin an ability. Let's take a look at knockback or knockdown immunity, which is essentially the same thing. This ability right now, as you can see again, says it has stagger immunity, but with tripods, which is the skill system here, I can also add a immunity to knockback effects on top of it. What does that mean? That means you can't be knocked back or knocked up during this skill, while in air, it says here as well. This is very important because this is essentially as super armor as it gets. So this is essentially a super armor. If your ability is stagger immune and knockback immune, it's essentially a super armor. So maybe now you're questioning, is there also something as maybe some abilities have an iframe, maybe some abilities are immune to actual hard CC? And to that I can say no and yes. Since there are no iframes in this game, there are only very limited amount of ways for you to actually avoid a hard CC. How do you do that? Well, the most easy way and the most straightforward way is your dash. In your dash, you cannot be CC'd by anything at all, which is the same for your ultimate ability as well. Outside of that, there's very few exceptions in some classes, like the Destroyer's Identity ability, for example, where he can only be slowed in and no other CC will ever affect him in. And that, like, some very specific exceptions, but for the most part, there are no ways for you to be immune to hard CC. And with that, we're at the end of the video. I'm glad you made it this far. I hope it was concise and helpful. If you want to see more of this, please leave a comment down below. I leave you with a little bit of a bonus tip, if you will. If you're out of abilities to save you from a stagger attack, for most classes in most situations, your auto attack is actually stagger immune. And with that, that's it for today. If you have any more comments or if you want to add anything, just let me know as always. And outside of that, I guess that's it. Thanks for tuning in. See you in the next one. And goodbye. Peace.